Yeah, Tendai, the issue of land on the continent has been an emotive one, and Africa has especially suffered from alienation of large swaths of land belonging to indigenous people for mining and large-scale farming. This is not for only African countries, but also one of the African countries that are caught in this particular problem is Kenya. The government of Kenya has said that Land Registration Act of 2012 needs georeferencing of land parcels to produce cadastral plans and also as well as maps to eliminate an overlap of the land parcels. Currently, as we are speaking, the government of Kenya, under the Jubilee regime under President Uhuru Kenyatta, has tried to allocate more title deeds to Kenyans to own land. And it's good that I also state this, that there are about 11 million title deeds in the hands of Kenyans, 6 million of which were issued between 1963 and 2012. Now, Kenya has been plagued by frequent problems concerning land. These problems range from huge tracts of land held by foreigners on land that local communities lay a claim on to ancestral or communal land, or even absentee landlords, even as well as numerous squatters. We also have a registered land and land grabbing cases. And it has been one of the problems that has been facing Kenya. And there have been a number of reports in Kenya indicating that land is one of the most prone sector that is most prone to bribery. So the government has been trying to digitize parcels of land in the country, and also allowing the Kenyans to have title deeds so that they can lay a legitimate claim on their parcels of land. So it's not something that is only exclusive to other countries. Kenya is one of the countries that are on the continent are caught in this emotive issue that most of the time, even during elections, is seen as an emotive issue where we are seeing politicians mobilizing people, mobilizing voters against certain individuals who they think they own parcels of land. And it's not something that has begun today. It's not something that began yesterday. It's something that began way back when Kenya was announced as an independent state from the British. However, the government of Kenya says that it has tried its level best to make sure that the legitimate people have their own pieces of land, and it's really happening. And people have been saying that this is a good gesture from the government. But now the problem has been the absentee landlords. So the Parliament of Kenya has been enacting laws to ensure that any land that is idle must be put to use. So that is it. But again, as Kenya heads to 2022 elections, I'm sure that the issue of land is going to be brought up into the whole politicking period, because politicians thrive well when they touch on land. And every time you touch on land, you're touching on missiles. It's a big issue in Kenya. In Kenya, there are three different classification of land. We have private land, we have public land, and community land. Private land is owned by individuals under freehold or leasehold tenure. Public land is vested in government for the benefit of people of Kenya, and this encompasses roads, all water bodies, national parks, and land that has minerals, among others. Then, of course, we have community land that is held and managed by the communities. This includes land that is owned by group representatives, shrines, grazing areas, and ancestral lands. Yeah. Of course, the issue of land administration in Kenya has been one of the most talked about things in the country. For instance, when you look at Kenya's current constitution, Article 40 of the constitution provides that everyone has the right to own property of any discretion. It can be any part of Kenya. However, if one is not a citizen of Kenya, they can own land on leasehold. Yeah. and that is a maximum of 99 years. A maximum of 99 years. Women, whether married or unmarried, have equal rights as men to own land in Kenya. Yeah. So the issue of gender has brought about a lot of issues in the country. There were days before this particular constitution that Kenya is using where land actually any foreigner coming to Kenya could own land for 1,000 years. Yeah. But the current constitution now provides 99 years, a maximum for 99 years. And of course, Kenya is operating on a number of legislations when we're talking about land administration. The Chapter 5 of the Kenyan Constitution provides for land and environmental management. And the law that governs land, actually, there are three legislations. One is the Land Act of 2012. We have the Land Registration Act of 2012, and then the National Lands Commission Act. Yeah, perhaps here I can mention that the land question and voting patterns in Kenya's election actually go hand in hand. And land is a key determinant of voting patterns in an election in Kenya because, again, it affects and brings forth to the fore the questions of inclusion and exclusion. Yeah, when you look at 2007-2008 post-election violence, land was one of the underlying issue that brought about grievances in the country. Yeah, so the government had to put in place an elaborate legal institutional architecture to respond to the land question. And that's why you've seen the government issuing title deeds so that they can cure the problem. And then we've also had a problem with there has been ongoing conflict pitting the conservancies in the farmers and the communities around there. Some of them say they use land. Many conservancies are using land against pastoralism and agriculture. And there have been calls to government to regulate and reconcile different land uses so that it doesn't form a political agenda ahead of elections. Yeah. So there have been communities, actually there are communities living around conservancies, and they've been arguing that these pieces of land belong to them, and therefore they cannot be restricted to put that land into better use. But the conservancies with their agenda, some of them are pieces of land leased to the foreigners who want to maintain these conservancies, have also had a claim on it. So the government has been receiving a lot of claims, and there has been an urge to have an elaborate legal and institutional architecture to respond to this particular problem because of recent in Kenya we've had the Laikipia conflicts, brought about land issues and so forth. So the government says it's working on having that elaborate legal architecture to ensure that it's no longer going to be a problem again. I think I'll be fair. There is no much documentation on the influence of China on Kenyan land, but I will tell you, perhaps it might manifest itself in the large infrastructure development that Kenya is undertaking. For instance, we have the standard gauge railway, and we have the Nairobi Expressway. I haven't seen much influence from outside the country, especially on China, but I'll be just candid. So far, I will not speak what I am not aware of, but of course, the major infrastructure projects that are being undertaken in Kenya are being, some of them are being implemented or financed by China. So perhaps there might be some underhand dealings, but there have also been complaints on people who've lost their pieces of land, failing to be compensated by government, especially when the government intends to build or to put a huge infrastructure project. Kenya has for quite some time gone hugely on agriculture transformation. And when the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta came into power, actually they took agriculture as one of the four main pillars of transforming Kenya into agricultural-based society. And Kenya has, for a long time, flourished in markets with the cash crops, having an integrated and functional value chain. And every day you see fresh flowers, fruits, vegetables, tea, coffee being airlifted to main markets in Europe, in the Middle East through the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. So agriculture is still the backbone of Kenya's economy. It is big, big, big. And the government says it's pumping a lot of money to farmers, to sugarcane farmers, yeah, coffee farmers and tea. And currently, as we are speaking, the government has initiated huge reforms in the tea and coffee sectors. They say, actually, they have a saying that if a farmer is not contented with what he brings forth to the market, then we cannot say that we have a sector that could benefit the country. So they put huge transformation and huge legal and institutional reforms in these sectors, and the government says it has to benefit its farmers, because if it benefits the farmers, then they will be in a position to get main market outside Europe. But again, in the East African community, Kenya has been one. Actually, Kenya is one of the countries that in the community have been at the forefront of ensuring that these crops are actually consumed by the people within the community, not just taking it outside Kenya, outside the continent, but also with the new formation on the continent, the FTA. African countries are able to consume from their own, instead of taking to the main market or looking at Europe as the main market for products or for cash crops. Kenya is also looking at how it can lay a framework on exporting these products to the neighboring countries. So Kenya still agriculture still is a key pillar for Kenya's economy. The issue of corruption is a big one in Kenya. There are people who've been saying that weak judicial system and frequent demands for bribes by public officials lead to increased business costs of foreign investors. Now, in the first term of 5 years of President Uhuru Kenyatta, corruption was a constant factor. People siphoning money, public resources, left, right, and center. That is the period within which we saw high-profile government officials being arraigned in court for colluding to swindle money meant for procurement processes, demanding for bribes. Yeah. So we have a number of cases in court, in the Kenya Anti-Corruption Court in Nairobi. And these are top government officials, like I indicated, cabinet secretaries. We're talking about the principal secretaries. We're talking about governors. We're talking about senators. We're talking about the low cadre officials, the county levels, yeah, people who've swindled a lot of money. And though there have been accusations of the wheel of justice moving so slowly, or moving so slow, actually. And the government has said that one of the biggest problem and stumbling block in the fight against corruption in Kenya is the issue of making corruption being seen as ethnic profiling. For instance, we have officials or top government officials who, when they are taken to court, they say everything has a political cut. Everything has a political connotation. So this has been seen as a setback because politicians go organize themselves in their ethnic cocoons, then they claim that our community is being targeted. Yeah. So that has been the biggest stumbling block against corruption in Kenya. But the government of Kenya has been seen saying that they have to fight corruption, and if the government has to fight corruption, the people have to play a role. But we've also seen the same in the public sector when we're talking about the transport sector, the matatus, as we fondly call them in Kenya. When the intention is to bring in digital cards for people to not pay cash while boarding matatu from one side to the other, those stakeholders in the matatu industry will say no, because they have to interact daily with money. So it has been a big issue in Kenya. It has been a big issue in Kenya. Yeah, but the prosecutor has indicated there are low cadre of cases that are being brought out of court. For instance, through the alternate dispute management fora, so that they can be handled there. But again, the issue of corruption is being handled at the Kenya's anti-corruption court. And the problem also has been the fine that a certain government official is imposed on. For instance, there's been a case of a cabinet minister or cabinet secretary who was leading the Kenya's delegation to the Rio Olympics. And the court documents show that he presided over the siphoning of funds from the Ministry of Sports. Yeah. So he was taken to court, charged, and convicted. The following day, he paid fine. He was convicted, but given an option of paying fine. So within 2 or 3 hours, the guy was out. Yeah. And do you know what he said? Free at last. So people have been arguing. So if you can be taken to court because of misappropriation of public funds, and then you are fined, you pay the fine, just a few millions, and then you get out. So what's the essence of fighting corruption in Kenya? So that is it in a nutshell. Yeah, on March 12, 2021, Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta issued Executive Order Number 3 of 2021, touching on the revitalization of the tea subsector. And there are a number of issues that were noted on this particular executive order. One of them that is that the tea subsector had been experiencing challenges, particularly with regard to diminishing earnings to farmers, tea farmers, and coffee farmers for that matter. And then the management of the small subsector is also needs some uplifting, yeah, so that the approximate 6% of tea production in Kenya, which is 69%, which is in the smallholder, could be revitalized. Now, the problems in the tea subsector have been partly attributed to the performance of the board, Kenya Tea Development Authority, which men have been arguing that is negatively affecting both the tea subsector and the Kenya's economy as a whole. Yeah. So there has been a desire, actually compelling public interest, for the government to intervene to secure the interests of Kenya's smallholder tea farmers and further the national good by embedding the ethos of good governance and the management of these particular sectors. So there was that directive, and the issue actually was to make sure that there is new establishment of Tea Board of Kenya that will work jointly with stakeholders in compliance with all the applicable procedural requirements, so that we can have leaders take leadership roles on this board, so that issues that are rising from the tea sector can be addressed objectively and transparently. Yeah. So that is part of what has been done in the tea sector in Kenya. Yeah, 2022, August 9th is Kenya's time to get to elections. And it is a transitional year from one government to the other, meaning that the term of President Uhuru Kenyatta is coming to an end. 2 terms of 5 years each that is provided in the Constitution is coming to an end. So Kenyans are going to elect a new government, a fresh government, because Kenyatta is now retiring. Yeah. And the Kenyatta's party, Jubilee Party, has had a hitting. A number of members of parliament have left the party. The party has been restructuring itself to join hands with the opposition party of the veteran politician Raila Odinga, who has been a common feature in the Kenya's election. This time, he is going for about 5th time now. And of course, there have been all ways of how they can mitigate violence that occasions elections in Kenya. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has been has got a shot in the arm. They now have the commissioners. You remember, the electoral body had lost its commissioners, about 4 commissioners, actually 5 commissioners, yeah, who resigned after the 2017 general election. So the commission is up and running. Currently, Kenya is now in the first phase of voters registration. It started last week for 30 days. So it is a tense year for Kenya. Of course, the issues of violence have been a constant feature, but the government of Kenya, with the stakeholders who are the political parties, have been calling for peace, have been calling for harmony, that Kenyans need to go to elections united, despite who wins this particular election. So it is a huge year for Kenya. Like I indicated earlier, we have new fronts of political parties who are fronting the presidential aspirants. Of course, Kenyatta's party, Jubilee Party, which is the ruling party, seems to be throwing the Deputy President, William Ruto, under the bus, and he's no longer going to vie under Jubilee Party. He has formed another party called the United Democratic Alliance, UDA. So that is the party that he's popularizing. Of course, they've fallen out with Kenyatta. That's not that political friendship that existed. Much we don't know of yet. It's not in the public domain what went wrong. So the Kenyatta's party is currently in talks to form a pact with the opposition party, the Orange Democratic Movement, for Raila Odinga ahead of 2022 elections. And the indications are that the Jubilee Party, which is the ruling party, the Kenyatta's party, is more likely to enter into a pact with Odinga's party and front Odinga as the presidential candidate for 2022 elections against the current deputy president, President Kenyatta's deputy, William Ruto, who has now a different party that he is popularizing. Of course, we have other parties that are also organizing themselves to be other alternatives for Kenyans on the ballot. But it is promising to be a grueling political contest, presidential contest. But of course, we have other levels of elections. We have the gubernatorial elections, that is for governors. Kenya has 47 counties or devolved units. So each devolved unit has a governor, it has a senator, and it has a woman representative. So we have at least 3 people coming from county. Then, of course, we have members of parliament from the constituency level. Then, of course, we also have the members of the county assembly. So we have huge lots. When you look at the ballot paper, you are seeing 6 options of people you need to vote in, or vote out for that matter. So it appears to be a contest to watch for the international community, for the Africans, because just like Hakainde Hichilema of Zambia, Raila Odinga is also a constant feature in the Kenyan elections, and this time round, he says he's going to win. So we can wait, but of course, we have the Deputy President of Kenya, William Ruto, who is also promising a tough contest. We also have other political leaders who have shown interest, like we talk about Musalia Mudavadi for Amani National Congress, that is a former finance minister and a former vice president. We also have the former vice president under the third president of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, Kalonzo Musyoka, who is also eyeing the presidency. Then, of course, we also, this time round, we are seeing the son of the second president of Kenya, the son of the late President Daniel Arap Moi, Gideon Moi, who is currently the Senator of Baringo, also in the contest. He is also eyeing the seat to replace or to take the position that will be vacated by President Uhuru Kenyatta in the elections. So, but Odinga, as you remember, in last elections, Odinga had these other presidential aspirants had been in in one political coalition, or in one coalition, that is the National Super Alliance. I'm talking of Kalonzo Musyoka, of the Wiper Democratic, I'm talking of Musalia Mudavadi of the Amani National Congress, I'm talking of Moses Wetangula of Ford Kenya. All of them were in one coalition. Now, each one of them is headed his own way. They couldn't sustain the coalition because of what they refer to as mistrust and failures to uphold the agreements that they agreed amongst themselves. So each one of them is going his own. Of course, they used to command a huge constituency in terms of voting block. We talk about the Eastern Kenya, we talk about the Western Kenya, we talk about we talk about the Western Kenya. Western Kenya, we have Nyanza and Western. So it used to be a huge voting block, but now each one of them is going on his own. And then now the President Kenyatta's or the President Kenyatta's staff, the Central Kenya is not producing a presidential candidate this time, and they are seen as if they are trying to court different presidential candidates who can meet their interests. But there are those who have been arguing that we are going to support Deputy President William Ruto because he stood with President Kenyatta and so forth and so forth. But they've also others who argue that he has shown so much dishonesty. He has sabotaged President Kenyatta's work, and they're no longer going to vote for him. So there are a lot of stories outside there. But it's a huge constituency because it has produced 3 presidents of Kenya. I'm talking of Central Kenya. It has produced the first president, President Jomo Kenyatta. It has produced the third president, Mwai Kibaki. It has produced the 4th president, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and as it is likely, they may not be producing the fifth president of Kenya. So there are all sorts of alignments and people who are going to be seen as if they're meeting their interests and who they will be voting for. So the voting bloc, that voting bloc is up for grabs, and many political figures, including Deputy President William Ruto, has been a common feature in that region. Raila Odinga has been a common feature in that region. So it might be the swing vote. It might be the swing vote. Whoever takes it perhaps could be the Kenya's president. So we wait to see. Of course, there must be a smooth transition. Whether you like it or not, the Constitution of Kenya provides for that. Whoever is announced by the electoral body as the winner of the presidential election is the president of Kenya. So there are no issues about transition. There are no issues about transition. The Kenya's constitution is very clear about that. Whoever is announced and declared by the electoral body as the winner of the presidential election will be the president of Kenya. Unless there is a case that has been filed at the Supreme Court of Kenya, like what happened the other time in 2017, where the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta was set aside and actually was annulled to pay for fresh election. But the Constitution of Kenya provides for a smooth transition. There is no otherwise. In Kenya, we have different sets of courts. We have the Supreme Court, which is the apex court. And then we have the Court of Appeal. And then below the Court of Appeal, we have the High Court. Yeah. But under High Court, we have different courts. We have the Environmental and Land Court. On the other hand, we have the Employment and Labor Relations Court. We have tribunal courts, as well as Court of Corruption. It's called the Anti-Corruption Court. But again, we also have the subordinate courts. Here we have the magistrates court, we have the Kadhi's court, and then we have the court martials. Yeah. So, like for instance, in Kenya, the Supreme Court is the highest court in judiciary, and the lowest court in Kenya is the magistrates court. Now, the Supreme Court only hears and determines cases relating to the presidential elections. It also hears cases that have been concluded by Court of Appeal, issues have arisen, and requires advisory opinions on matters concerning county governments. Yeah. And then it also handles the cases where it is required to make the interpretation of the application of the Constitution, and also in the matters of general public importance. Yeah. The Court of Appeal also hears appeals from either court or tribunals, as they may be prescribed by the national legislation to determine the validity of a declaration of a state of emergency, if that occurs. So this court comprises of the Chief Justice, who is the president of the court, and also the president, the chair of the Judicial Service Commission. Then we have the Deputy Chief Justice, who is the Vice President, and then we have 5 judges on the panel. That one is based in Nairobi. Of course, we have the Court of Appeal, which handles appeals arising from the decisions of High Court, as well as other tribunals as provided in Kenya's Constitution. The Kenya's Court of Appeal has a maximum of 30 judges. The judges of the Court of Appeal elect a president from among themselves, and then it is decentralized, and currently has a total of about 6 registries. That is in Mombasa, Nairobi, Nyeri, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, and many other areas in the country. And then, of course, we have the High Court, which is the constitutional court. Yeah, this mediates on the issues of constitution, the issues of jurisdictions on to hear criminal and civil cases, and also can be an appellate court to hear issues from lower courts. This comprises of about 150 judges and has its original jurisdiction in all criminal and civil matters. This is a court that interprets the Constitution. It hears appeal from subordinate courts and tribunals, and as well also supervising all the administrative bodies, which we refer in Kenya as the judicial review. Now, it has different divisions, of course. We have the family division in the High Court. We have the commercial and the admiralty on the High Court. We have the constitutional and judicial review. We have land and environment, criminal, industrial, and environmental court. We have anti-corruption court. And we have here about, actually this court is in about Kenya's 20 stations countrywide. So we have different sets of constitution that handle different issues, yeah. But such issues can only get to the apex court when there is mediation or there's there requires to be an advisory opinion. But of course, we also have other courts below the magistrate's court, which is the smallest court in Kenya. The matatu industry in Kenya is part of the Kenya private sector economy, and but there've been a lot of arguments that there is a minimal regulation. Yeah, the industry has been operating on the 1973 presidential decree, the Central Business District Decongestion Decree, and the Sacco Company requirement of 14-seater matatu seater. The conceptualization of the industry is partly contributed to the ineffective governance of the sector, and people have said this has eventually attracted informal governance system, including criminal gangs managing routes and termini. But the government of Kenya has argued that the sessional paper on the integrated national transport policy that addresses serious public transport problems facing major urban centers and cities in Kenya, there needs to be an important role that matatus play in filling public transport gap. Now, for quite some time, you remember that there was in Kenya there was the second turning point that brought a lot of legal regime in the matatu sector. The then security minister known as Michuki, and then the Minister for Transport introduced a new law, yeah, and sets of regulations that were meant to address the problem within the industry, the public service orders, the drivers and conductors, who largely are seen as the beneficiaries of this legal instrument, yeah. So there has been the desire by the Kenyan government actually to restrict, and the government is actually right now doing that, restricting the 14-seater matatu from entering the central business district. So Kenya has constructed a modern parking lot. It's not parking, a modern termini for all buses getting into Nairobi. So on the west of Nairobi, buses that come from routes that are on the west of Nairobi have a certain area where they are going to use as a termini. The same to buses coming from the eastern part of the city. So the issue is to decongest the city and allow the public to walk from one end to the other. And then the government is introducing a new non-motorized transport system for short distances. Now, this will be covering those who are alighting in those stations or termini that the government is constructing, so that the non-motorized transport will just be carrying, that will be the only licensed, for short distance to carry people from this termini to the city. Yeah. So the issues of the problems with howling in the city, a lot of pollution in the city is going to be a thing of the past. Yeah. So that is part of what the government is doing right now, and as we are speaking, they are carrying out trials I'm sure the phasing out of 14-seater matatu within the CBD should be implemented before December. Before December. The government has said that the policy is going to drastically affect public transport within the country, so that at least there is safety, and then we have a number of pavements you can ride. You can ride within the CBD. There are lanes that can be used by the riders. Yeah, there are lanes that can be used by the pedestrians. So it's no longer going to be all noise within the CBD. So the government is trying to make sure that that works. So that is where we are. But of course, it's a multi-billion sector. But of course, there is the issue of decongestion brings a lot of jitters. There are those who say they are going to lose a lot. And so such kind of stories. But so far, so good. We are waiting whether the trial is going to end this December, and then perhaps next year government rolls out begin implementing the new terminal to allow the congestion of the CBD. So in the trial, the government is engaging is trying to bring sanity by engaging the stakeholders in the matatu sector, the matatu owners and operators, so that they can comply with the laid down rules. Of course, we've had police also being on standby to crack down on defective vehicles and the errant crews who are seen as continuing to cause problems within the CBD. So everybody's waiting in big towns how this is going to be rolled out, and we can't wait to see. But of course, I didn't mention to you, we're having Kenya currently is constructing a huge Nairobi expressway. Nairobi is going to have to actually have a place within the CBD where you could find yourself on the traffic for more than 5 hours. You're going to spend less than 20 minutes. So that will be a huge impact on the transport in Nairobi. Yeah, the Kenya bus service is still operational, but now at a reduced by almost half on all routes that it was servicing. But Kenya bus service refurbished the old fleet, now concentrated on some routes to restore credibility and also gain back public confidence. But with the advent of matatus, it is just restricted within certain areas within Nairobi. So it's no longer getting out of the city. So as we are speaking, it is even open to franchise, yeah, where the company right now known as the Kenya Bus Service Management Limited employs a vehicle franchising model to enable vehicles owners provide public service passenger services such as commuter transport, private, and even contract on hire and transit advertising. Yeah, so that is what is currently happening, but it is reduced completely. It is not the same way it used to be to operate. Currently, we have a lot of companies that have come in, and even in the city, there are certain vehicles that have been introduced by the government of Kenya that will be used to pick and drop, yeah, from the terminal that have been constructed around the CBD. Yeah, Tendai, I think Rwanda is doing it well because it's sending all its arsenal against fighting corruption, actually. And there are a number of factors that have helped Rwanda fight corruption because when you look at the Transparency International's report perception index, Rwanda is doing well in the East and Central Africa, and largely is the least corrupted the fourth or fifth least corrupted country on the entire continent, because Rwanda is leveraging on its political will, awareness campaigns, and enforcement of laws, yeah, in preventing and fighting corruption. In countries like Kenya, the reason why corruption is not being fought to the last effort is because there is no political will. And again, um, there is this culture of associating fight against corruption to tribal cocoons. Yeah, you touch a certain public figure, then politicians begin to look at it as if their communities are being targeted, you see. So we must admit corruption is high on the continent, but we must create a culture where the public knows that the whole essence of transparency and accountability are virtues. These are virtues of governance. People need to support governments. We must have a political will, and the public must be aware, yeah, that we have laws uh, that are going to, if enforced well, actually, we can fight corruption. But we are glossing over. We are glossing over. We can take 2 or 3 things from Rwanda and fight corruption. Without that, I think we will still struggle. Countries like Uganda, Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan are still struggling with corruption.